What is up, people? Welcome back to Blue Chip Prospect for another video. Today is the day where we start breaking down who are the best prospect at their respective position. The goal is to do at least a top 16 defenseman and a top 16 forwards, and then maybe a top 16 everything together, but we'll see how it goes. But anyways, let's get this thing started. So first thing first, there's a few departure from last year's top 10. Some like Luke Hughes and Pavel Mintyukov, who I had a number 2 and number 8 respectively, did really well in their first season. Others like David Jiricek, Simon Nemec, and Olen Zellweger are showing big time potential. Some like Edvinsson didn't play enough to have like an opinion on them. And then there's Kevin Korchinski, who had a very tough first season in the NHL and clearly wasn't ready for 20 minutes a night in the NHL, but still hung in there. I would expect him to get back on track anyways. Also, I decided to go with 16 this year because there's just too many good defensive prospects to choose from, and even then, there are many defensemen who I thought deserved to be on this list but didn't quite make the cut. Players like Tristan Luneau and Maverick Lamoureux comes to mind. Also, players like Mikhail Gulyayev, Adam Jiricek, Sam Rinzel, Scott Morrow were also all very much in the conversation, but I had to stop somewhere, so I cut it at 16. The only player not on the list that I would put in the fourth tier, just like the first 5 player of this list, is Oliver Bonk. So we could say that Bonk is number 17 or something like that. It's just that I know his production kind of boosted his stock, but he will most likely never be put in a position to produce points from the bumper on the power play ever again. So it's not exactly all translatable, but he does deserve to be mentioned here. Also, last but not least, please take the time to like and subscribe to help the channel grow and to get more NHL prospect content. So let's start this. And we start this list with a bang and a player that I'm sure most wouldn't have in their top 16, and that player is Ben Danford. I already knew I liked him when I watched him play in the season, but as the playoff went on in the OHL, he was an integral part of Oshawa's playoff success. It's clear as day to me that Dan Danford is first and foremost a defensive defenseman who doesn't let anything get past him, but he's also quick in his decision making. He can make good and clean and quick reads on retrieval, escape pressure easily. He moves the puck in transition quickly. He's mean, he's intense, he's overwhelming, and I think there's more playmaking that meets the eye. He was a safe pick by Toronto in the first round, but the more I watch and the more I think he's more than what his stat sheets show. And at number 15, and still in the fourth tier, I have Sten Soberg. It's been hard to evaluate Soberg over the season. I couldn't find games in Norway, so I had to rely on the U20s and the World Championship, which is not ideal. But from what I've seen, he's a very confident player defensively, closing his gaps before the blue line, hitting players coming down the wing like a ton of bricks, and he's also got some moves offensively. He's a very good skater defensively as well as offensively, and he developed some kind of a deception game from the offensive blue line in at the World Championship, so there's that. So while I don't expect him to be a 40-point defenseman, I think he could turn out to be something like Kane Gooley Light, which would be a fantastic pick at 23 for Anaheim. So next on the list is Tom Willander at 14, and Willander switched from one development juggernaut in Rogler to another with Boston University, and his first season in North America went as well as he could have, playing good minutes on a stacked team and putting up decent numbers with 25 points in 38 games, second on a team behind no one else than Lane Hudson. Even if the numbers are positive, most of his value comes on the defensive part of things, where he's just a handful to play against. He never gives up on plays. He can beat you up with physicality, just like he can beat you up with positioning and killing plays before they happen. He's an outstanding skater and he knows it. He's very poised on retrieval. He waits to attract the forechecking pressure on himself before blowing past them and faking them to open space for a breakout pass. He's a fantastic defensive transitional D who isn't negative value with the puck on his stick. I don't expect great things offensively, and he doesn't have much of a translatable offensive game for the NHL right now, but his main job will be to defend the rush and defend in zone and move the puck from defense to offense quickly, and he can do that really well. And at 13, I have Axel Pila, and it's funny because last year I had Willander before Pila, and now they're neck and neck, but Pelika's offensive game in the SHL and in the U20s is pretty hard to deny. He's a very good skater, and he uses it to move along the blue line to open shooting lanes, but he's also capable to hit seam passes while hiding his intention, creating big open space on the ice. He definitely has the skills and the skating and the shot and the hockey sense to produce at the NHL level. I'm just not sure if it's going to be in a 19 to 20 minute stop for capacity or if it's in a power play specialist type of way. His defense is suspect, and I don't think he got all that better since his draft year, but he has a lot of time time in front of him to round out his game, and he's got the offensive and transition part of the game nailed down, which is usually the part that's harder to teach, if it can be taught at all. So call me a homer as much as you want, but I have Logan Mayu at number 12, and he's the last player of that fourth tier. I feel like the trendy thing to do right now with Mayu is to be low on him or not mention him at all, or point out his defensive mistake as the reason why, but completely failed to mention his progression over the last 2 seasons in that department. With the COVID thing and the girl recording thing and the suspension thing, his first junior season was actually just last year. So between his time in the Greater Ontario Junior Hockey League and last year, there was only like 16 OHL games that were played. In my opinion, that's a major reason why his game is progressing so fast and why his defensive game was so lackluster. You can practice and watch as much tape as you want. If you don't put in the reps in your development years, you'll never progress. Now that he has 2 fantastic seasons under his belt, all he's got to do to keep pushing toward the top 4 role in the NHL is working on faster reads, creating space for himself and with his body and his skating, and be more consistent in the decision-making department. Not that it's easy to do, but he's got the tools to figure it out, and he showed it with steady defensive progression and 47 points in 72 games in his first pro season. And at number 11, I have Carter Kiimchuk, and honestly, if I went 100% with my heart here, Kiimchuk would be much higher than that. If he can find it within himself to make better reads defensively and work on his athletic tools like his skating, he can be one hell of a player. Obviously, there's a ton of work to be done to get there, and he sure as hell represents a risk for Ottawa for where they picked him, but if he booms, he has what it takes to be a freaking monster on the ice and break open a game with his skills. It's just that there is not many defensemen in the NHL who plays like him. Actually, can't think of one player who really has a similar game with so-so skating and elite hands, walking the puck to the high slot for shots or attract poke checks to open passing lanes like he does. But if it all goes well, he's the next Evan Bouchard with a ton more physicality. And at number 10, I have Denton Matechuk, and I know that Matechuk isn't the biggest at 5'11", and he's not the fastest or the most agile skater with an average grade on his skating, but I've always been a fan and a believer in the way he processes the game. I actually had him number 8 on my 2022 draft board, and I think that since his draft year, he just got better and better. He does everything at a high-end level. He's super competitive. He wins his battle for the puck. He uses his body to separate the carrier from the puck. He has an elusive stride and uses deception to break out the puck through the pass or transition through the neutral zone. He joins and leads the rush. He activates down the offensive zone on every possession. There's nothing that he can do at a high level. Yes, I would like for a 5'11" defenseman to have better athletic tools, but the speed at which he processes the game, in my opinion, more than make up for it. So at number 9 is where we get into the real elite tier. Yes, players like Pila and Kiimchuk have a chance to be a first power play type of defenseman, but starting here at number 9, those players have more than just a slight chance. They represent less of a risk, or the reward is just that much higher. Yes, we could say that Pila and Perek have similar strength and similar weaknesses, but Perek has 10 times the offensive IQ. The reward with Perek could be as high as one of the very best offensive defensemen in the NHL. That can be said with players in the previous tier, outside of maybe Kiimchuk. I already did a full scouting report on Perek, so I don't need to go into details here, but to put it simply and why I think his game is as translatable as it gets, everything revolves around him being constantly 2 or 3 steps ahead of everyone. Yes, he has all the right skills, the passing, the handling, the skating, the shooting, they're all top tier, but everything in his offense is all just being at the right place at the right time. You rarely watch a game and come out of it impressed and wowed like you would with Kiimchuk, but he finished the game with a goal and 2 assists. He's a chess player on the ice, setting up traps and using every one of his teammates to create offense. I thought of switching him and Hudson, who's higher on this list because he's that good, but the fact that Hudson was capable to do what he does at the NHL level against a team fighting for a wild card spot in his first 2 games make me keep it that way, but they're definitely in the same tier. And at number 8, this is one that people might think is a little bit questionable, but I have Artem Levshunov. I had him in my second tier, but still my 4th favorite D in the draft just a few months ago, so it wouldn't make sense to have him any higher than that for me, especially since there were no additional game to watch. Obviously, there's a world where he's a complete two-way defenseman with great offensive instinct and have a major impact on the team defensively, and his progression year over year would indicate that this is where he is heading, but I'm just not as sold as most people are. When I watched him, there was just something missing. It looked very sloppy at times, and I think that to be effective at the NHL level, he's going to have to scale back his aggressiveness offensively, and when he does, or if he does, then I just wonder how much offense he will create. Don't get me wrong, he's a fantastic prospect and the potential is sky high because he has a little bit of everything. I just have a harder time projecting his game and a harder time seeing what makes him elite in most people's eyes. And at number 7, I have Anton Salv, and it's amazing that New Jersey could get someone like Salv at number 10. The potential impact of Salv on the ice is elite. I don't expect him to be a major point producer, and I don't expect him to be a first power play type of guy either, but that doesn't mean that he can't move the puck. And even if his game and decision making sometimes came with questionable decisions, let's not forget that he was thrown in the KHL playing big minutes for 60 games plus as a 17-year-old. The guy was basically a no-name in the MHL to suddenly defending in the KHL on a good team. This stuff just doesn't happen, not for 60 games in a season. I think New Jersey is probably one of the best landing spots for him, as he will not have to be one of the do-it-all defensemen and provide tons of offense, since they already have Hughes and Nemec for that. So he will be able to impact the game the way he does best, which is with his defensive and transition game. There's work to be done on that front also, but the sky is the limit for him. The athleticism is off the chart, the skating, the reach, the physicality, the size, it's all high-end plus. He's a physically smothering defenseman, and it's not like he doesn't have an offense game at all. He can also make plays. Give him time to get reps in, and I'm sure the decision making will round out and be just fine. Here at number 6, I struggle with 3 players, including 2 Habs prospects, and even if I place Hudson before Reinbacher in the Habs prospect pool, I'll have Hudson behind Reinbacher in this list. And the reason why is that the prospect pool is mostly based on potential. This list is more of a mix of potential and the probability to actually reach that ceiling. With Hudson, sky is the limit, and if there's even a limit, but the probability of him turning into a scoring machine as well as a positive impact defenseman on the other side of the puck at his height and his weight and with his defensive skating are probably not that high. Whether we like it or not, there's really not that many Adam Fox and Quinn Hughes in the league, and even Hughes, who's heavier by 20 pounds and who can skate circles all day long around Hudson, he had a tough time in the playoffs. But the reason why I have him at 6 is basically because there is that chance where he becomes a Adam Fox light, a top productive defenseman who can also defend at a high level. He was capable to shut down teams in the NCAA, so it's not like he's going to turn out like a Tony DeAngelo type of player, but I'm very interested to see how he develop his defensive game over the next couple of years in the Habs organization. I was always high on him, and I'm even higher on him now, but I'll wait to see what he can do in a full season in the NHL before comparing him to some of the best undersized defensemen in the NHL. And at number 5, I have Dimitri Smichev, who's another one for who I've been very high on since his draft year. I had him 3rd last year in my top 10 defenseman video behind Luke Hughes and David Jiricek. He's a defenseman in the same mold as Anton Salv, standing at 6'5", but I think he's an even better skater. He's even more of an overwhelming presence defensively. He plays harder, he plays faster, he has deception to his game. He looks like a first pair, maybe even number 1 defenseman in the making. To me, he's one of, if not my favorite defenseman prospect in the whole league. He's no Zane Perek when it comes to great offense, but he jumps in so many plays. In transition and on the breakout, he can move the puck or skate the puck with ease. He sells all those little misdirections on every retrievals and every breakouts. There's really not much he doesn't do well, while also being elite at rush defending and an overpowering defender in his own zone and along the board. In my opinion, the stat sheet really doesn't reflect the quality of the player on this one. I thought long and hard about this one between Reinbacher and Smichev, and while I prefer where Smichev is a year later compared to Reinbacher, while I also prefer many elements in Smichev's game, I think Reinbacher has more natural offense to his game, so I gave him the edge, but those two switches places every time I think about it. Reinbacher isn't an overpowering defenseman like Smichev, but it's not needed to be efficient. He's not as good a skater defensively as well as offensively, but he's more than good enough to close gaps gaps quickly or retrieve pucks and send it the other way. You won't see him skating through the neutral zone as often as Smichev, but he can evade pressure and hit forwards on the move, so that's fine. He's not nearly as physical, but some of the best defensive defensemen only play the body to separate the puck from the carrier, so it's really not an issue. Basically, he's a lot less spectacular and fun and scary in every facet, but he's mostly just as effective. And offensively, I think he has a little bit more of a distribution game. His shot is very meh, but he said he's been working on it and it's something that he wants to improve. I think he makes good decisions and doesn't force plays, but more and more try to find ways to create opening in the offensive zone and hit teammates with seam passes to the middle third of the ice. It's definitely all a work in progress, but now that his knees are completely fixed and that he'll now play in North America, I think we'll finally see who's the real linebacker. At 3, it's Sam Dickinson, and there's not much left to say than what I already said on him. Dickinson is a young, June birthday, 6'3" defenseman who skates really well, who plays a confident game defensively as well as offensively, who's also produced at more than a point per game clip in the OHL on one of the best, if not the best, developing team in the whole entire world. He's a good passer and a heavy shooter who can transition the puck with ease and can defend positionally as well as physically. He can do it all. I don't think he's as close to, let's say, Lev Shunov to his ceiling. There's some stuff he can get by in junior with his skating that just won't work in the NHL, but if there's one place to elevate your game and make the most of what you have, it's with London. Honestly, I just think he will be a beast. The fact that San Jose got Dickinson at 11 in the draft is a little bit crazy to me, but it's even crazier that Minnesota got Zeev Buium at number 12. Honestly, I just think that Buium is probably the best defenseman drafted since Luke Hughes maybe in 2021. He's not that big, but he's been good to very good defensively in the NCAA. He was as good a shutdown D as you can get in the championship games. He's not the fastest skater out there, but he's extremely elusive. He's extremely smart on the ice and always thinks a couple moves ahead. Obviously, he looks like a player that will eat up power play minutes in Minnesota and will probably knock Faber down to the second unit as he's a way more natural and creative playmaker. If there's one player in this list that has a chance to be the next Adam Fox, it's Zeev Buium. He's really that good. I'm not saying that he will be. Adam Fox had 3 consecutive 70-plus point seasons by 26-year-old, so that is not a fair projection for anyone, but Buium has it in him to become something special in my opinion. And at number 1, I have the enigmatic Alexander Nikishin. Nikishin is like what Kaprizov was before he came to North America, but as a defenseman. He's now 22 years old. He's been the most productive defenseman in the KHL for 2 straight 50-plus point seasons. He's 6'4", 216 pounds. He skates really well. He defends really well. He straight up destroys people with devastating hits. He has a power bomb from the point, but also an accurate and heavy wrister. He's deceptive without all the shaky. He has good vision and passing ability. Really, he's got it all. I don't think he's a Buium or a Perek in the way he creates offense. It's a lot more direct, but I have no doubt that it will translate. To me, he's another Moritz Seider coming into the league, which is a problem. And honestly, I think Nikishin is even more dynamic and diversified offensively, which is even more of a problem. If you want to have a good time watching some hockey before the season starts, treat yourself to some SKA condensed game of past Nikishin games or upcoming games on the KHL website. I promise he won't disappoint. So there you go for the ranking, and the fact that I got this video under 20 minutes is a hell of an achievement for me. It just never happens. But to finish this off, I decided to put tiers in all my new ranking because sometimes the difference between number 9 and let's say number 5 or 4 can be very thin and be just a matter of preferences and style. So like this, you can see that even if Perek is 9th and Hudson is 6th, they're in the same tier, and that can change every few months or so. Nothing is set in stone. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed, and as always, thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Peace.